Good afternoon and welcome everybody to IBMF's VetNet webinars. I hope all is well with you and your families. In partnership with the Hire Heroes USA, today we bring you a VetNet session on getting the job and growing from within. Today with us, we have employers from Amazon, Jacobs, Travelers, and Booksource. My name is Elvis Savdic, and I am Post-Program Sports Service Advisor here at IBMF, the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University's is higher education's first interdisciplinary academic institute, singularly focused on advancing the lives of nation's military veterans and family members through programs in career, vocations, and entrepreneurship education and training. For more information on how you or someone that you know can take advantage of IBMF's programs or services, please visit us at ibmf.syr.edu. I, along with the rest of the IBMF Alumni Services team, assist our program graduates with resources and networking connections. That's why we have teamed up today with HHH USA to host this VetNet webinar on getting the jobs and growing from within. Moderating our session today is Faith Manita. Faith has been with Hire Heroes USA for 2 years and is employer engagement specialist whose main focus is to facilitate the coordination of interview matching between onward to opportunity students and employers. She's a certified professional recruiter and loves her work facilitating opportunities for veterans and military spouses every day. But before we get started, I just want to make sure that to let everybody know this is being recorded, and if you have registered for this session, you will get a recorded link along with the survey, short 1 to 2 minute survey. So please fill it out, let us know how we did, so that we can improve, and of course, to let us know what other future webinars you would like to see. If you have any questions during this webinar, please type them into the chat box and we'll make sure to get to them. With that being said, I would like to pass it over to our moderator, Faith, to introduce herself and our guest panelists. Faith, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me. Thank you for that introduction, Elvis. Yes, my name is Faith Mantia. I am an employer engagement specialist here at Hire Heroes USA. So just like Elvis was saying, my team our main focus is to facilitate that coordination between, for interview matching between onward to opportunity students, O2O students, and employers who have really taken that next step, taken that initiative to interview and then hopefully hire vets and mil spouses. So I have been with Hire Heroes almost 2.5 years. Previously, I was a corporate recruiter for about 2.5 years. So I have just under 5 years of recruiting experience. It's been very interesting to see both sides, corporate and nonprofit. That's definitely been unique. But we are not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about our amazing panelists and the wealth of information that they are about to share. So I'm going to just quickly go over a brief little summary about each of our guests today, and then I'm going to give each of our panelists some time to better introduce themselves and dive a little bit deeper into what they do at their respective companies. So first up for today's employers, we have Ann Urpenbeck, a National Workforce Transformation Program Manager at Booksource. So Booksource is an IT staffing company that specializes in assisting Fortune 500 companies with project support. So Ann has served the role of recruiter, program coordinator, and then currently runs the veteran consulting program called Project Patriot. Next up, we have Jim Mcmahon. He is a military and veteran talent acquisition leader at Travelers. So Travelers is the second largest commercial property and casualty company in the US, and they have been recognized by the Military Times as a Best for Vets employer 7 years running. And Jim is really leading that front. He has more than 25 years of experience in recruiting and HR under his belt. Next up, we have Jose Orlana. Jose is a talent acquisition specialist and IT recruiter at Jacobs Engineering. So Jose began his recruiting experience back in 2015 and specializes in TA talent acquisition specific to aerospace, biomedical, financial, and DoD industries. His primary focus at Jacobs Engineering is to place intelligence analysts, developers, engineers, and manufacturing professionals. And then last but not least, we have Bo Higgins. Bo is a senior manager of talent acquisition at Amazon. So Bo is a leader of a department that's tasked with evaluating the impact of the investment Amazon has made in the U.S. military veteran community. Additionally, his team focuses on developing Amazon's ongoing efforts to increase the hiring of mil spouses and wounded warriors in order to meet Amazon's pledge to hire 25,000 veterans over a 5-year period. So I know I ran through that really quickly. We are going to just give our panelists a little bit more time to introduce themselves, go a little bit deeper into their background. So Anne, Jim, Jose, and Bo, welcome and thank you so much for joining our VetNet webinar today. Anne, welcome to VetNet. And why don't you go first with the introductions?
All right, thanks, Faith. Yes, thank you, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. My name is Anne Urpenbeck, and I do work for Brooksource, which is probably a little bit less familiar of a name than the other great organizations that are here today. But as Faith mentioned, Brooksource is an IT staffing company, and I run our workforce transformation solution, which consists of 2 different programs, one being Elevate, which is our associate program, and then one being Project Patriot, which is obviously what we're here to talk about today. And Project Patriot is a program that focuses on helping veterans as they're transitioning into the civilian workforce. So we are a consulting company, which means that we are working with a lot of companies across the country. We have 28 different locations. And so we are assisting other organizations with identifying veteran talent. But not only that, we actually have an onboarding component to the program that really specializes in helping the veteran kind of navigate the organizations that they're starting with. We also offer additional technical training to help with the ramp up of getting up and running within that specific team that you might be starting with. And so we support veterans, spouses. I am here talking about Brooksource today. We also have 2 other divisions called Calculated Hire and MetaSource. So we also can assist veterans and their spouses who are looking to get into the financial, anything related to business, as well as healthcare information technology. So I don't want to just limit it to the IT space, but I know that I've worked with Hire Heroes quite a bit in the Brooksource space. So if you or anyone that you know is looking to kind of get some of that assistance, I'd be happy to connect you with someone in a local market and kind of start that conversation. And our goal typically is to kind of provide that mentorship through your job search and hopefully make a career match for you and help you get started on a good note. So I appreciate your guys welcoming me here today, and happy to answer some questions for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anne. Perfect. All right, Jim, thank you for joining us today. We'll move on to you next.
Wonderful. Thanks, Faith. Pleasure to be here. So Jim Mcmahon with Travelers Insurance, based in Hartford, mentioned we're the 2nd largest commercial property and casualty insurer in the country. So what's the connection with the military? Don't think of insurance, think of it as risk management. Everyone in the military is trained at risk management, how to recognize it, mitigate it, avoid it. That's essentially our business. We've got 90 locations across the country, about 30,000 employees. We know a little over 1,000 have prior or current military experience, and it's that connection to risk. I never had the pleasure of serving. So I represent probably 99% of the population out there. And as I interact with my recruiting staff, with our hiring managers, I see and hear a lot of things from a stereotype perspective. So on your point of view, you may hear insurance means sales. No, I don't want to touch that. What I would suggest and ask you is be open-minded. Insurance doesn't mean just sales. Bo is probably going to talk about Amazon. Amazon isn't just driving a delivery vehicle. There's a wide range of opportunities out there. So very briefly, if you're banging dents out of a Humvee, we would make you an auto adjuster, the person that shows up to the driveway and surveys the damage from an auto accident, because you've already made the decision to fix it or scrap it. Army engineering, Navy Seabees, if you've got construction experience, the same thing from the perspective of damage to a building. We have risk control engineers. So if you're familiar with OSHA regulations or hazardous waste material, we've got roles for you. There's a lot of connectivity. So again, what I would suggest is be very open-minded in your job search. Yeah, I'll throw one more out there. We have a catastrophe risk strike team. We've got about 250 individuals, and they deploy on 24 hours notice to hurricanes, wildfires, catastrophes around the country to help our customers. And you would be amazed at the technology that they utilize. So we've got aerial photography of pretty much every square mile in the US. And we will take satellite imagery after an incident, compare it to prior, very similar to geospatial, what you'll do in the military, and we'll know where damage is to our customers very often before our customers know that they have damage, and proactively reach out to them and let them know whether or not they have a house to go back to, from a wildfire in California. So pleasure being here. We'll have some interesting, I hope, conversations and tips for all of you. And thanks for your service, and look forward to the next hour or so.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jim. All right, Jose, thank you for joining us today. You are up next.
Awesome. Thank you, Faith. Thank you for everyone joining this as well. Actually, I didn't know a lot of that stuff you just mentioned, Jim. So that's awesome that you guys have so many opportunities for veterans as well. My name's Jose Orianna. I'm a talent acquisition representative here at Jacobs. I've actually been with Jacobs going on a year now. I've been in the staffing industry for about 5 years. The reason why I decided to join Jacobs, honestly, is I've done both the staffing, like the true staffing side of recruiting, and wanted to do more of a corporate function when it comes to hiring individuals. I was in the Marine Corps for about 7.5 years, and when I got out, my transition journey was very difficult. I actually was a motor T operator, so I didn't want to be, I didn't want to continue that career path when I got out. So I had to fall back to retail management, which is kind of what I was doing before I joined the Marine Corps. So in my view, I took so many steps back. And I was very fortunate to come across a company in California that gave me an opportunity to learn the ropes of how to be a recruiter. I had no idea anything about IT or aerospace or engineering, but they honestly taught me everything from the ground up. And that's when I really started to grow as an individual and really see myself making a career out of the staffing industry. So I picked Jacobs as a company where I wanted to work because when I worked on the staffing side, I would get a lot of veterans that would call me and would be interested in positions, but the 3 staffing firms I worked for, they didn't have a lot of book of business when it comes to placing veterans. A lot of the veterans I deal with or would contact me would be Intel or IT professionals who held a clearance. So that's when I figured that that's gonna be my passion. I wanted to help veterans find a meaningful job after the military, utilizing their skill set that they've learned while they were serving their country, and be able to help them in the private sector, right? So here at Jacobs, we have 2 books of businesses. One is our infrastructure and engineering, which most of those positions do not require a clearance. We have anything from administrative all the way up to engineer positions, supporting a lot of companies. Specifically here in Florida, we work very heavily with NASA. And then my division that I support out of the Tampa office, we focus strictly on the DoD contracts. So we work with a lot of those 3-letter agencies. We have IT and Intel folks that sit on base pretty much anywhere as long as there's a military installation or a SCIF. What I typically recruit or staff for on a day-to-day basis here at Jacobs is anyone from like a help desk position all the way up to Intel analysts, F&B, cybersecurity professionals, project managers, pretty much anything that requires you to hold an active clearance. I support that here out of our Tampa office. And what I tell military veterans and spouses, you guys have a crazy life where you guys are always being deployed. You guys work crazy hours. So you guys adapt very well to change and deal very well with stress, which is why I really enjoy helping veterans, especially here at Jacobs, because one day you'd be doing one thing and the next day you're doing something totally crazy. So I think individuals who want to continue serving their country in a different facet, instead of being active duty, Jacobs would be a great organization to join. And we do offer great benefits here as well. The one thing I will tell you, because I know a lot of companies out there say, you know, they have a pathway for you to grow. A lot of people say that, but they don't really have a plan set aside for you to be able to do that, right? Here at Jacobs, all of our employees get a $5,000 tuition reimbursement. So if you are in IT or if you want to get your PMP certification, we give all of our employees $5,000 to use however they want in regards to furthering their education, getting certs, which a lot of companies really don't do that. So definitely take advantage of that. Find a company that is willing to invest in your skill set to set you up for success and to kind of grow within the industry, right? So I'm happy to be here and thank you again. I'll be more happy to answer any questions later on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jose. It's so interesting to see, you know, how everyone kind of ended up in recruiting. Recruiting isn't something that you maybe start out like, oh, I want to be a recruiter, but you kind of fall into it. And I think, you know, each of these panelists have really found their niche and their passion. So last but not least, Bo, you are up next.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Faith, and thanks all for being here today and great to be part of this event. So did Bo Higgins. I was 25 years in the Marine Corps. I've been with Amazon now for 4 years. I'm actually not a recruiter. I started off at Amazon soon after Jeff Bezos made his pledge to hire 25,000 veterans. I was brought on to help kind of run that effort. I've since moved into a program management role where I'm actually building out pathways to bring veterans into Amazon at scale. What does that mean? We have a variety of ways you can come into Amazon as in internships or apprenticeships or different tailored programs we have for veterans. So, you know, I often will say, no matter what your rank or NEC, no matter what your MOS, somewhere at Amazon is a job for you. And my job is to help, you know, be that translator, that Rosetta Stone, to be able to figure out what's out there for veterans, right? I think a lot of people think of Amazon and you think, oh, warehouses, you know, I don't want to go in and work in a warehouse. Well, Amazon is really like, you know, about 10 different companies under one brand. So with AWS, obviously that's all the IT side of the house. But we have Amazon Video and Amazon Prime and Amazon Devices, and they're all different. So, you know, if you want to get into operations, maintenance, IT, I need medical people, public policy, lawyers, you name it, we need them somewhere. So again, the hard part is, you know, I do always, when I talk to folks, if you come to me and say, I'll do anything, anywhere, I can't help you. I have over 40,000 jobs I'm trying to fill right now. So you need to do your work up front to help narrow down what you want to do. But I guarantee you somewhere at Amazon, there's something you want to do. And my team and I can help you find that out. So look forward to being here, answering questions. We'll go from there. Thanks.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. All right. So moving on, we are now going to spend the next 15, 20 or so minutes allowing our guests to answer a series of prepared questions. So for those of you viewing this session live, please feel free to utilize the chat box to ask any questions to any of the panelists. We're going to leave time at the end to answer as many of those live audience questions as possible. But right now we are just going to get into the prepared questions and we'll kind of go down the list like we just did for the introductions. So, all right, first one, kind of elephant in the room, COVID-19. Kind of, I think it messed up our whole world, but definitely through recruiting and the hiring process, through a loop. So first question is, in today's resource constrained environment of COVID-19 that's happening this year, one, where does your company stand with hiring? And then two, how can veterans, service members, and their families prepare to do job searches in this pandemic? So kind of a two-parter. So Anne, you are up first.
Yes, this is a great question. I think when COVID hit, everyone was kind of in that reactionary state where they had to figure out how to go about, well, what was the workforce actually going to look like? A lot of people are working from home. And so I would say the biggest thing that we've seen, and again, we're working with a lot of different companies, so I don't have I can't speak specifically from an internal perspective, but when it comes to the interviewing process and bringing new people on to into teams. I think a lot of our managers, we had to really teach them how to conduct the interview process and how are you selecting someone who's going to fit into your culture through just a virtual interaction. So I think that was a really big thing. People had to pivot, and especially for companies that some companies were probably more prepared for the virtual work than others. But for those who may not have been as prepared, that interview process is really important when you're not only for you as a job seeker, but for, for the individuals that are interviewing you. Trying to build a rapport virtually, takes a little bit of a different approach. And then I think another thing that we saw is also the actual onboarding experience that goes into bringing someone on virtually. When companies are used to, giving out laptops, giving badge access, like all the little things that you kind of didn't really think too much about, how you go about doing that virtually and getting that information, your computer, all the stuff to the individuals to give them access to the organization from a virtual setting. I think that was the biggest overhaul that we've seen. And of course, budgets, just being, as we said, the elephant in the room. With uncertainty comes budget cuts or budget freezes. I think right now, on a very positive note, we're starting to see a lot of things open back up, a lot of opportunities out there. And so from my seat, that was probably the biggest thing that I've seen. When it comes to your job search, I think, I don't know if I have a different way of how you'd go about that job search. I think that the networking opportunity, I always would recommend networking is like, your biggest advocate. You're able to make connections with people who can kind of give you that inside, the people that can help you make those connections. And so there's still a lot of virtual networking opportunities that are going on. So if you're still able to, similar to what we're doing right now, if you're able to get involved with certain events like that, make those connections, I think that certainly helps. And I think it's also a good time where if you're not sure what you want to do, if you find something that you're passionate in, I think there's a lot of tools out there too, from an educational perspective, that it's a good time to kind of really sharpen the tools that you have and if you're identifying, I know if I speak to the IT space, there's a lot of, platforms out there with free education, and that can really help you in an interview process or getting your foot in the door. So just off the top of my head, those are a couple of things that I would recommend, but I definitely would still utilize your network in making those connections, because I think that can still go a very far way of finding a good job for you.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. I think what you touched on is something that most companies are going through, and a lot of employees, a lot of candidates that, I set up for interviews are struggling with the Skype interviews or the, one-way video interviews. They're, most candidates are used to in-person, firm handshake, stuff like that. So it's definitely been a learning curve for everyone. Thank you so much. All right, Jim, you are up next.
Thanks. Can't emphasize networking enough, and totally agree that the dynamic of a Skype interview, not the same as in person, but pretend it's in person, develop that rapport, good contact, good interaction, ask lots of questions. With respect to COVID, we went remote. We're still remote. We have just started very selectively opening up some of our offices, and we're not encouraging people to go into the office. It's more from a convenience perspective if you really can't work from home. But here's a wonderful, I think, positive thing that's happened with us. We've got some of our business units that are very traditional, hire in specific locations and train as a cohort, sit together, onboarding and things of that nature. Well, we're now training remotely, and we've been working remotely for 7 months. So one of our business units, for some insurance service reps, the folks you call if your son or daughter just passed their driver's license test and you want to add them to your insurance policy, or you bought a new car and you need an insurance card. You call your insurance company and you're talking to somebody. Those positions were traditionally based in 5 locations. The head of training for that business unit is a retired lieutenant colonel who moved 11 times. And he and I have been lobbying with the business for a while to consider military spouses. And I'm thrilled to say that our most recent hiring effort, rather than being based in Knoxville, Tennessee, we opened it up and we hired, we had 105 military spouses apply. We hired 5, and they're in 4 different time zones. And the business is thrilled. They've really woken up to the idea of, okay, there is a tremendous group of individuals that tend to be highly educated, under or unemployed, unfortunately. And we're now going to train them remotely, let them work remotely. And if they transition or transfer with their spouse, they're going to take the job with them. So COVID may have a lot of challenges, but there's one that I'm thrilled that I'm looking into 2021 and probably going to look at maybe 200 or 300 jobs that we would have been locked into fixed locations that military bases aren't close to, that now I think we're going to open it up for, you know, a broader audience. So I think those are the positive things you should look at, not the negative. You know, what you can't control everything, but look for those open postings that are indicating virtual opportunities or remote opportunities. And again, expand some of your thought process. Thanks.
Awesome. Yes, I totally agree. A lot of the jobs I've been sourcing lately have been, you know, remote opportunities, and that's amazing. Just as you said, for mill spouses, and you find a lot of good talent that you wouldn't have found if you were constrained to, you know, a specific office. So thank you so much for that, Jim. All right, moving on. Jose, you are up.
Awesome, thank you. So in regards to COVID, I know a lot of my friends and colleagues who worked in this industry, they were really impacted with COVID, unfortunately. So I'm really glad this question came up. Here at Jacobs, honestly, we did not feel the hit of COVID, at least not in my office, because we handle all the DoD side of the work, right? So all the positions we have, they are crucial. Most people have to sit on site or in SCIFs, but even that, we were able to adjust very quickly, providing laptops, monitors for all these IT professionals to be able to work from home, which we used to have these conversations with the government all the time saying, you know, can we have people work remotely? And they would always say no, because the security level is so high that, you know, we were able to do it in a couple of weeks here. So we continue moving forward, business as usual. On the IT side, we didn't let go of anyone. We were actually hurting to find individuals, because a lot of the individuals I was coming across, they were furloughed, and you know, they were waiting to see if they were going to be able to come back and stuff like that. So they were kind of held to seeing what would happen, right? And when this whole COVID situation started, people thought it'd be a couple of weeks, then a month, 2 months, and then obviously it dragged out, right? So it was really hard for us to find individuals, because they've been with a company for 7, 10 years, and they didn't want to leave just due to something like this. But us, we are still actively hiring. Currently, all of our positions, we are able to do a phone screen or a Zoom meeting within 24 to 48 hours from when a candidate applies. And then in regards to the second part of that question, what could individuals be doing to prepare or get back on the job market if they weren't able to come back to their previous employer, is definitely network as much as you can. Utilize LinkedIn, your friends, your family members. I'm a huge advocate for LinkedIn. I've done both my recruiting on LinkedIn, and also I found employment via LinkedIn. Anytime I apply to any company, I always go on LinkedIn and I type in, so like for instance, I'll type in Jacobs or recruiter or Jacobs and manager or something, right? And try to connect with as many individuals within that company, and just introducing yourself, saying I'm a military veteran, wanted to see if I can add you to my LinkedIn network, in the hopes of being able to land a position with your organization, something like that, right? Honestly, I've done that for the past 3 years or so. I've never had anyone say no, or, I'm not interested. Either they will add you right away and say, how can I help? Or if not, they'll say, hey, Jose, thank you for connecting. I'm not the right individual for that, but contact, so-and-so. They'll be more than happy to help. So definitely leverage your LinkedIn connections or your network in general. But also, I think this question, I share this question with veterans or anyone looking for work. When you are considering to join a company, ask them how they dealt with the COVID situation. Ask them if they had to lay off people or furlough people, because you don't want to join a company that doesn't have a good foundation to tackle situations like this, right? So if they had to furlough everyone and now they're, hiring new individuals or whatever the situation is, definitely know all the ins and outs of how they handled this pandemic to see if this is a company that is stable and will kind of set you up for success in your next opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jose. That's definitely, that's a unique question to ask. I didn't think of that one. That's a wonderful thing to ask if you're a candidate. And then the LinkedIn, I always stress that to clients. So before I started working actually as an employee at Hire Heroes, I was a HHUSA volunteer, and I helped clients kind of buff up their LinkedIn, because as you were saying, it's such a great tool and recruiters use that so often. So I think sometimes clients forget how often recruiters really use LinkedIn, and how they, recruiters look at how many times you post and what you post and who your connections are. And so LinkedIn is really, really important. So I'm glad you brought that up. Awesome. Thank you so much. And then last, Bo, you are up.
Yeah, sure. Certainly happy to share some lessons learned from Amazon. I mean, obviously, Amazon has had a unique effect, or COVID has a unique effect on Amazon. The company has grown dramatically this year as a result of the demand for folks to have products delivered at home, and then the infrastructure to build that out to get you your products at home. From a pure hiring side, we've hired more people this year already than we did all of last year. I hired over 7,000 veterans in August alone. I mean, that's the scale we're hiring at right now. That's just veterans in August. So it's ridiculous. And that most of those jobs I'm talking about are in the fulfillment centers, so they're still physically in the warehouses. We've done a lot to make sure those are safe with temperature checks and separation. I mean, a huge investment of money to make sure that our employees were safe in those environments. On the IT side of the house, and maybe recruiting and the HR side, we have seen more jobs go remote. My team was all based in Seattle before and working in buildings downtown. Now we're all working remote, which is great, in particular for what we're looking at in the future, in particular for targeting military spouses who often need to have remote roles. So again, I think there's gonna be some positives from this long term of how we look at and are able to add more remote jobs to Amazon's portfolio. In the past, Amazon was very much a be there in person type of company, but that attitude is changing based on seeing the productivity actually increasing in many areas because of COVID. For part two of that, as far as what opportunities has or changes it had from the recruiting side, I think honestly, if you're a candidate, you can attend way more events now than you could have in the past, right? I mean, usually, you would have to drive an hour into the city, go to an event. It would take you a day to maybe talk to 20 employers. Now you can do 5, 6, 7 different sessions in one day to at job fairs across the country. So if you're not out there participating in events like this every day, or multiple events like this every day, shame on you. Amazon pivoted pretty quickly back in March. So we had a series of in-person events planned on different bases, and we've gone to every Thursday we host a remote event specifically focused on veterans every Thursday, and we're getting 400 and 500 attendees every Thursday. So I don't see that changing in the future. We may add in some in-person events in 2021, but for now it's working. It's a lot cheaper. You're not spending 3 days to get to an event where you're only there for 4 or 5 hours. So I think the future is going to be remote, and for a candidate, it gives you much more opportunity than you would have had in the past.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah. It's, you and Jim kind of were bringing up the positives of COVID, silver lining of everything. And yes, those kind of virtual career fairs, the virtual job fairs, it can be a positive for sure. Awesome. All right. So question number 2, the business and recruiting environment changes so quickly and so unpredictably as we've seen in 2020. So the question is, why veterans? What benefits have you guys seen when it comes to hiring veterans or military connected candidates?
Yeah.
Oh, Anne, sorry. Anne, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of stealing Jose's comment from his introduction of speaking to the fact that the high stress nature that you're able to handle, agility. I think, with all of the changes that have happened, I think those are certainly great attributes that would help, anyone to kind of overcome those. Outside, I mean, there's 1,000 things that veterans, that you bring to the table with leadership. When I'm working with management, and I'm kind of trying to educate them on why bringing on a veteran, I always mention the leadership, dedication, loyalty. I mean, there's so many different things. We've often see that if we start a veteran in one of the roles that we put them in, that you kind of far exceed the ability to be promoted at a faster pace, just because I think the unique thing is you're coming in with whether you're changing careers from what you did in the service or not, you're coming in out of kind of a fresh start. And I think just really owning the reason why you're wanting to start in that specific area, to me, it just shows a really a great level of commitment. And I often work with a lot of veterans that have gone back, use their GI Bill to kind of make a career change. And I think the commitment level to do that is just astronomical, going in and kind of, starting over, if you will. And I personally think that's something that if I were in an interview and I had someone sitting across the table and really being able to sit down and speak to like the reason why they're, changing the role that they're in and their interests and their passion about it. I personally think of that as a really, really great attribute of showing that commitment and maturity in making those decisions as well. So there's 1,000 reasons, but I'll stop there because I know we've got more questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anne. Yeah, I love that, a fresh start, and finding your why. Why are you changing careers? That's an awesome thing to think about. All right, Jim.
Everything that Anne mentioned, the positives, and we don't need to repeat them. I would totally agree with that. The one thing I would share with the audience, though, is don't underestimate your abilities. I cannot tell you how many folks I have talked to over the years that start with something like, I was just a supply clerk or radio operator or infantry. I mean, that's negative. Embrace what you're coming with. Again, 99% of the people may not be familiar with the military, so explain them. You might have been in the infantry, but ask, are you familiar with the infantry? And it's attention to detail. It's following the process. It's the mission is going to be accomplished. There are so many positives. Package that up. Be really proud of what you've done, and don't be afraid to tell me or an employer. That's why we want to hire you. And once you get in, we've just had great experience with rapid promotions. Again, situational awareness, you make decisions. We have so many other individuals that, it's analysis paralysis. They're sitting here thinking about, well, what are we going to do? And, they have a meeting to plan a meeting to figure out a decision, versus our military personnel. And this includes military spouses. I don't want to hear I was just a military spouse and I may have gaps in my resume. What were you doing during those gaps? Well, you were managing your household. You were maybe volunteering. You were going to school. You might have been working, and it might not have been the ideal career opportunity for you. But boy, again, embrace the strengths that you have across the board for our veterans as well as our military spouses. And there are employers, you've got 4 of them here today, and there are a whole bunch of others that we want to hire you for all of the positive reasons. So embrace what you bring to us.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. I love that. Analysis paralysis. Yes, decision making definitely comes into play when you're looking for a good candidate. Thank you so much. All right, Jose.
Thank you, Faith. Hey, Jim, that was awesome. You actually just remind me of a story, honestly, that I had forgotten about. I think we forget about military spouses a lot, right? We focus a lot on veterans, but military spouses, they bring a lot as well. When their husbands or their wives are deployed, they manage the household, they manage the kids, they volunteer. And I had a military spouse who sent me over her resume, and I was beyond impressed with her resume because I'd never seen anything like that. Even though she had been a stay-at-home mom for the past few years, her resume read like she managed an entire office. I mean, the verbiage she used in regard, and she was just sharing like, I volunteer at my kid's school. I do, you know, this at home for the kids. I think she was a stay-at-home. She tutored on the side, and then she had one of her kids homeschooled that she was doing. But the way her resume just read, I was blown away. She could totally be like a project manager, an office manager. You know, it was just beyond impressive. So don't ever underestimate what you've done, because you have a lot of things to bring to the table, no matter how small you may think they are. It's all about putting it into the verbiage for whatever position you are applying to. I get that same response from a lot of veterans as well, where I send them a job description and their resume doesn't highlight what they've done. You know, so for instance, I work with a lot of 25 Bravos in the Army who are IT professionals, but not everyone knows how to write a resume, which is another reason why I really enjoy partnering with Hire Heroes USA, because you guys do that. And I've seen just a plain resume after when a candidate sends it to me, and then they work with Hire Heroes USA, and the difference of the resume, right? And not everyone's a professional resume writer. When I actually have a copy of my resume when I got out that I wrote, and if I compare that with the resume I sent into Jacobs, it is night and day. You know, I've learned so much from actually reviewing resumes and giving tips on resumes. So definitely know your worth. And the reason why we hire veterans here at Jacobs, honestly, is for all the things that we mentioned already. But you guys bring a new perspective sometimes to the organization, that we may be looking at this problem and we've been trying to fix it or change it, but we don't know how. A lot of our veterans are the ones that bring these new initiatives. The other thing is, for us specifically out of the Tampa office, I hire people straight from the Intel space and from the IT space, where they have 4 years, 8 years, or 20 years of experience doing nothing but IT or doing nothing but Intel. So they are a huge asset to our organization because we don't have to train them. Typically they have certs, they have the experience, they've been deployed. They are the ideal candidate for most of the positions we have here at Jacobs.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jose. Yes, I love when you said, you know, new perspective, a fresh perspective. And then I also appreciate you hyping up Hire Heroes USA with our resumes. So for those of you who are not aware, I'll give a quick shout out to Hire Heroes USA. So when you sign up for our free services, you're assigned a transition specialist, which is basically like a career coach. And all our transition specialists are, like Jose was saying, certified resume writers. So I always encourage all our clients, even if they think their resume is the best thing since sliced bread, our resume writers have a unique way of translating that military experience into something for corporate recruiters. So I love the way we format our resumes. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Jose. And then Bo, last but not least, you are up.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask why veterans, I mean, for us, it's pretty straightforward. And there's a great quote that Jeff Bezos made a couple of years ago, and it says, you know, when asking about who we look for to come work at Amazon, and he said, we actively seek leaders who can invent, think big, have a bias for action, and deliver results on behalf of our customers. I mean, that just resonates with me as far as what do veterans do and what do veterans have? If not veterans, who has a bigger bias for action? Who has a better ability to deliver results? I think that's the key for us. And you know, if you are applying for a job or interested in the job at Amazon, we have 14 leadership principles that are the core of what our culture is based on. And those, you know, the bias for action and deliver results, or 2 of the 14 that are out there. So, you know, the skill sets that veterans have translate directly into what Amazon is looking for. Amazon is chaos. You know, I need people that are comfortable in chaos and can think on their own and operate on their own, or used to not being told what to do in a step-by-step manner, but can get out there and just deliver on their own. And that's what veterans bring to the table. So I think that's something that is maybe sometimes underappreciated. Amazon certainly appreciates that. Our spouses have it too. Again, I think to everyone's point, they may not know it sometimes because their skills are different and their resumes look different. That's okay. I mean, the experience of managing a home when your spouse is deployed and is dealing with the things that you deal with is the ability to be comfortable in chaos and throw PCS moves and all the crazy that happens in that. That's a skill that spouses bring to the table. So again, we've recognized what veterans and military spouses bring to the table. We continue to grow our investment in that, and I don't see that stop anytime soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Bo. Yes, comfortable in chaos. I don't come from a military background, but I would assume every vet and mil spouse here was definitely agreeing with you that they are 100% capable of dealing with chaos. So, all right, our next question. So when recruiting veterans, have you guys observed any common issues among veterans transitioning and joining the civilian sector? And if you have, what advice would you give transitioning service members to help them overcome those issues? Anne.
Yeah, this is a great question. So one of the things that we offer through our Project Patriot program is we call it our Transition Accelerator. And really we built it out with veterans who had already transitioned and we focus on areas that they were looking for more guidance in. And I think just to kind of mention a couple of them, because I know we're tight on time. One, how to escalate questions and really understanding. I think sometimes you get into a big organization, you're so used to understanding kind of the ranks and how you kind of escalate things. And when you get into corporate America, sometimes things are very ambiguous. And sometimes that is not laid out for you. So I would certainly, my biggest recommendation would making sure you seek out a mentor who can help you navigate the company that you're working for, not just your team, but the organization as a whole, and how each person's interactions kind of impact the overall bottom line. I think that's something that in general, when I've spoken with veterans at a transition, that delayed, if they don't have that information, it delayed their ability to really identify with that company as quickly as they would have wanted to. And I think that's no matter whether you're a veteran or not, in all honesty, that can be an issue for everyone, but being so structured and understanding, knowing when your promotions are coming and having that laid out for you, that's not always the case in corporate America. And having that, I can't remember who mentioned it, but really knowing what that career mapping progression looks like, those are going to be really, really important things that will help you, I think, identify in the long term the growth there.
Perfect. Yes, I completely agree. Thank you so much, Anne. Jim.
Yeah, find your voice, speak up. You may be very used to a structured environment, but in our environment and a lot of large companies, it's very collaborative. So if we were in a conference room, nobody wears their rank on their sleeve, so you don't know who the 06 was or is, and you don't know who the E3 is. Everyone has an opinion. Yeah, the 06 is going to make the decision, but if you're coming in and you're brand new, have a voice, have an opinion. It's really going to be noticed, and just again, don't be bashful. And this may sound crazy, but in our environment, it is better to come to a meeting late than it is to leave a meeting early. And I know in the military, 15 early is on time, right? The most important time in a corporate meeting is the last few minutes. So what our culture is, start at 5 after, have some small talk, but we've literally had to coach some of our recent military hires saying, stay until the end, right? Do not leave. It's okay to come late to your next meeting than it is to leave early. So subtle advice, because the most important things are going to happen at the end of the meeting.
Awesome. What good advice. That was something I hadn't thought of. So thank you for bringing that up. Awesome. All right. Jose, you are up next.
Awesome. Thank you. So when it comes to hiring veterans and maybe challenges or obstacles that they come across when joining the private sector, right? A lot of veterans, especially if they've been in for a while, it's kind of hard to adapt to the private sector, which is here at Jacobs, it's a little bit easier because 98% of our staff is prior veterans. So we typically are really good with engaging our new hires. We have a lot of military groups here as a company where once a month we meet, or now we've been doing virtual events, but we'll talk about PTSD, we'll talk about certain things that are relevant to our employees. Sometimes we'll even send emails out to see what people want to talk about during the next event. So we definitely engage very heavily with our veterans, but also all of our employees, to see what they're struggling with and how we can kind of help and set them up for success. That's one of the biggest things that I really enjoy about Jacobs, is we engage so much with all of our employees. Our CEO and higher level staff, they have like once a month, they have a virtual event where they share the roadmap of where we're heading the next couple of months, or what initiatives we have coming up. And it makes all of us feel like they're really engaged with us, that they're listening to our opinions. I can send a message to the VPs when we're having these live events, and they'll answer them right on the spot, which, I don't know what other company you can send an email to your VPs and they can get back to you instantly with whatever the question is. So definitely make sure you find that group of colleagues within the organization that can kind of help you and support you and kind of set you up for success going forward.
Perfect. Yes, Jose, I totally agree. And you were kind of along the same lines of Anne saying, trying to find a mentor, find, that group that you fit in with and that your opinion is heard. So I appreciate that. All right, Bo.
This is something that I've seen with veterans, that especially direct transitioning veterans that come into Amazon, that I think is important to be aware of. It's what I call the Shawshank redemption factor, right? You were somebody inside the institution. You knew your place, you knew your rank, you knew what to do, you knew how to get things done. You were very independent in the way you operated. You could get orders, you could get a rifle, you could get, whatever you needed, you knew how to make it happen. You move into Amazon and all of a sudden you're very dependent. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to use the systems. People are speaking a foreign language. And what I've seen is veterans are often very remiss to ask for help. I think they see asking for help as a sign of weakness. The reality is, if you don't ask for help, you're going to fail at Amazon. It comes so fast and there's so much going on that you need to take a knee, drink water and say, what's going on? Where do I focus? Because people, if you ask for help, you will get it. If you don't, people assume you got it, and the weight of it can crush you. And I've seen it, one of the main reasons that veterans leave Amazon in their first year is they just get overwhelmed by the pace, because they didn't ask for a mentor or help in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's the thing I would say. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. And I think veterans view it sometimes as a sign of weakness. So getting over that, to me, is the most critical thing to help your transition from the military into Amazon.
Thank you, Bo. Yeah, that's a great answer. Asking for help. Yeah, so you don't get overwhelmed or burnt out. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Our next question, kind of a two-parter again. So part one, once a candidate is hired within your company, is there certain experiences or traits or skills that's going to help that candidate stand out in order to get promoted in your company? And then kind of part two, taking a step back, what do you look for in an employee when you want to fill a position within your company? So Anne, I know that's kind of a two-pronged question.
Yeah, and I'll speak to this from the consulting side still to bring a different perspective, because it is across so many different companies. I think from a general perspective, curiosity, passionate about continuous education, and just always looking to evolve. Those are things I think across, if I were to speak to any manager, VP, director, whatever level they're at, those are going to be traits that I think they hold very valuable. Of course, there's leadership. Always, sharing your opinion. I think everyone, your opinion is valued. And I think that's how you separate yourself from others, is sharing your perspective. So to keep it short and sweet, I would say the curiosity and continued learning and willingness to evolve is going to help you naturally grow within the organization. And that second part of that, I would say those are things that we try to push you and guide you to do within the program. And we work with managers on that as well to kind of help open up that line of communication and expectation. So I would say the experience growing within the organization is we want it to be set expectations so that everyone knows, you know, what needs to be done to grow and kind of keep that open-ended for everyone. So I'll stop there so that we can get another panelist to answer that as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Anne. All right, Bo. I know Bo has kind of a hard stop in a couple minutes, so I wanted him to answer this question real quick. So Bo, you are up.
Yeah, I think the big thing that we're looking for that's going to make you successful, you know, is are you a cultural fit? And that's really what we're looking for. And those leadership principles that I talked about before, and that's going to determine, you know, how well you do at Amazon. I mean, so many resumes, to be candid, look the same on paper, right? So we're looking for something almost intangible, and it's your culture. And each one of our companies has a different culture. That's a good thing, right? But we're looking for that person that's a cultural fit. You know, obviously you have to be operationally competent. I almost expect the competence part. The cultural piece is where I think people have a challenge sometimes making the transition, is being part of that Amazon culture. The nice thing with Amazon is we're so big and we're growing so fast. Once you're in the door, you have the opportunity to lateral, you know, I call lateral move into a wide variety of jobs. So if you get in operations, you decide, you know what, I want to move into learning development or be a PM or be HR. That is super cool. We're good with that as long as you are a cultural fit. So again, focus on that cultural piece. It's huge at Amazon. If you can do that, the world becomes your oyster, what you can do at Amazon. And I regret I have to leave early. If you have any follow-up questions, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Bo Higgins, I'm happy to help. So I'm going to drop, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bo. And then for those of you, I don't know if you saw, Bo had put the link in the chat box to Amazon's weekly webinar. So I know someone had asked a question about that. So he did put that link in there. I know we got a little out of order and I know we're running a little over time, but Jim, would you like to take a stab at this question?
Yeah, love to. So our organization is very much a promote from within. Yeah, so my advice is get in and then you'll do great. And it's the be confident without being arrogant. Again, have a voice, offer opinions, and it's the decision making. It's the situational awareness that everyone coming out of the military, including military spouses, it's that decision making that I think will really propel you. I've just seen phenomenal career growth very, very rapidly compared to a civilian hire versus a military connected hire. So
perfect. Oh, I was just about to say Anne has to drop off. I know we're running a little bit over, but Jose, you are up next with this question.
Awesome, thank you. So here at Jacobs, when it comes to what things do veterans bring or what can set them up for success, with us specifically is there are certifications, whether that's in IT or PMP or anything like that, right? Just because we support the DoD very heavily and they're very cert heavy. So you cannot move to a certain position unless you have, so for IT specifically, right? So if you want to be a network engineer, you have to have your CCNP and a specific clearance and stuff like that. So what we have, or what we do as a company here, after someone's been with us for 6 months, regardless of what position you were brought on to, and I'll use a help desk as an example, right? We know individuals that we bring on as help desk, they don't want to stay in that role forever, right? They're looking to go either to the network side or the system side, or be engineers or do cybersecurity, whatever it is, right? So we typically have one-on-one conversations between them and their managers in regards to what they want to achieve in the next 6 months or in the next year, regardless of that's staying in the same department or transitioning to another department. So at that time, the managers will share with that individual, and as an example, right? This help desk individual wants to be a system admin, right? So we are going to guide that individual to make sure they get some other higher level certs like their MCSA, and typically to go from help desk to system admin, you would need to know what your duties and duties and responsibilities will look like as a system admin, right? So the manager will give you more opportunities to learn that side of the house to set you up for success. So when that opportunity becomes available, we can have you apply and then you can be considered for that role. So definitely just making sure you're very open with the managers and say, hey, I know I'm only a help desk person, but I want to be a cybersecurity individual within the next year. What do I need to do to get there? And then the manager will definitely be more than happy to share what you need to do to be considered for those opportunities when they become available.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Jim. Thank you to Anne and Bo. This was an amazing session. Thank you, Faith, for great moderating this session. Thank you all, and we did go a little bit over 2 minutes over time, but like I say, stay tuned. We'll be sharing this registration link and recorded link to all of you who registered. And please take a survey, let us know how we did and what other future webinars you would like to see. Thank you all and have a good day.
Thank you, folks. Good luck.